let's get to last night, what we saw. Cam Newton. Now, look, I will fully admit, I am not a Cam Newton dude. And not my jam. And the reason is that so many things have to go right in order for Cam to be Cam in the NFL. Right? You have to play a little bit more ball control because he's not a throw it 50 times a game guy because he's never been accurate. He's just not. He's not a savant in terms of breaking down defenses. That's not what he does. Now, he has a huge arm, a huge body. He's a remarkable athlete, and guys seem to like him. Right? So those things, not all people, but guys seem to like him. So with that in mind, you got those three things going for you. He's been a league MVP. He's been to a Super Bowl, albeit he performed very poorly in the Super Bowl, both during and after the game. He's not perfect, but he's also not the worst quarterback in the league. Last night, he was obviously limited by what we believe is an injured shoulder, as well as playing against a pretty good defense, and with an offense that's suddenly become inept. But I had two thoughts here in watching. This one is interesting. There's been a lot of calls for Colin Kaepernick to be in the NFL. Okay? If Colin Kaepernick is going to be in the NFL, the first team that should pick up the phone is the Carolina Panthers. Right? What were the limitations on Colin Kaepernick even when he was healthy? He didn't read defense great. Couldn't throw from different arm angles because he got small hands. But great out of the pocket. Does have a good arm. Not great at breaking down defenses. He's a different version of Cam Newton. But do you want to know why that will never happen? It has nothing to do with him suing the league, although I'm sure that might play a small part of it. Cam Newton's not letting that happen. Zero chance. When you're a starter, especially you're a guy with as big an ego and as big of a following, and you're the franchise quarterback like Cam Newton, a lot like the reason Kaepernick wasn't a backup quarterback in Seattle. Russell Wilson wasn't having that. Neither will Cam Newton. So I watched yesterday. I'm like, man, why don't they put the back? Oh, yeah, the backup's Derek Anderson. Which brings me to my second point. Cam Newton is arguably the best big athlete to ever play the position of quarterback. Right? Like, there have been big human beings. You guys ever... We've had Drew Bledsoe on before. Like, Drew Bledsoe is gigantic. There was Mark McGuire. Remember Mark McGuire's brother? Right? You guys remember him? I don't even remember his first name. I'm blanking. Dan McGuire, right? Dan the Man? Dan McGuire? He was like 6'8" at quarterback. Brock Osweiler was like 6'7", 6'8". There have been big dudes. Cam Newton is big. Cam Newton is wide. Cam Newton is a physical specimen. Greek gods are like, we look up to that guy. That's how big and physical and the type of specimen that Cam Newton is. And Cam Newton's body continues to break down. Why? Because the way he has to play the quarterback position, he has to be a vital threat to run the football. And while his head isn't as much an issue because, frankly, his head is above anybody else's target level, his shoulders aren't, his knees aren't, legs aren't. And you're watching his shoulder and you're like, man, why is it so bad? Because he's taking a beating. This can, and I've had Lamar Jackson fans, but why did you throw Lamar Jackson in there? Look, I don't think Lamar Jackson is going to be a good quarterback long term. I have years of history, both recent and previous, to tell you that. I do understand why it's working in the short term, and I'm fascinated to see if it'll work next season if they continue on this path in Baltimore, right? But in order to continue on this path, you're going to have to get some backups that play like that because he's going to miss some games. And he's going to have to evolve and improve as a passer, which I just think there's limitations to how much you improve. But we'll see. But Lamar Jackson has taken the starting job from Joe Flacco, and they're going to ride and die with him in Baltimore. And to anyone who says, I don't understand the correlation between Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton. Well, Lamar Jackson's going to run the football more. He's going to throw it less. He's like half the size and width of Cam Newton, and he's going to take the same, if not a greater beating. And then you have the issues that Cam runs into where Lamar Jackson doesn't read a defense all that well. He's not terribly accurate, which has been the biggest knock on Cam Newton. And unlike Cam Newton, when Cam Newton gets hurt, he's so big, he can still find a way to be effective. If that little dude gets hit, and you're going to get hit, they're going to catch you eventually, just doesn't seem to have a long staying power. You know who else I fear for? Deshaun Watson. Like, look, if it could happen to Cam Newton, it could happen to Deshaun Watson, who's torn two ACLs already, and we're not even talking about the rest of his body taking a beating. I don't know if you're aware, but Deshaun Watson had to drive. He had somebody drive him from Houston to Jacksonville for a football game because he had a collapsed lung. That actually happened. Look, Deshaun Watson is tougher than a $2 steak, and I actually think he's a good enough leader and potentially a better quarterback than Cam Newton. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn in saying that. I don't think he's great. I don't think but all you have to know is that style of quarterback, we can't protect you there. We can't. It's like if you remember, did you guys watch The Godfather 2? You remember The Godfather 2? Godfather 2, they moved the family to Nevada. Right? Godfather 2, they're in Nevada, and when Michael Corleone leaves the compound, can't protect you. So the family stays only within the compound. The pocket is the compound. Anything outside's the rest of the world. And one of the other families might want to take a shot at you. That's all it is. Like, Tom Brady got hurt once. And he's played for 18 years. Yeah. And by the way, when he got rolled up on, you know what the NFL did? They changed the rule. You can't hit a guy below the knee. The Tom Brady rule. Phillip Rivers is arguably the worst athlete to ever play the position. I'm serious with this. Phillip Rivers is a terrible athlete. He's not slow because he's old. He's always been slow. He started, I think, 205 or 206 consecutive games. Do you know why? Because he never leaves the compound. Eli Manning, the only thing that stopped his starting streak was he was terrible. And he didn't want to come out of the game in the fourth quarter, so they took him out in the first quarter. Oops. So, I mean, look, when did Carson Wentz get hurt last year? Did he get hurt in the compound? Nope. He wanted to go and do his own thing. Andrew Luck trying to take on linebackers, and then the snowboarding incident. That stuff didn't happen in the pocket. Yeah, the snowboarding incident was long rumored, and he actually talked about it before the season after he had hurt himself supposedly one time. He hurt himself again, hurt his shoulder again. Snowboarding? Yeah, not snowboarding. Even Drew Brees, who's played forever. Drew Brees, remember, his shoulder nearly fell off. I can't remember that. I think that was scrambling. That might have been a sack. That was his last game as a San Diego Charger. Devastating stuff. But Drew Brees is tiny. He's my size. You know why he keeps playing? Because he stays in the compound. Look, if that big dude who's 6'6", 250 pounds, has got a cannon for an arm, he's like a freight train running you. If they can hurt him, what do you think they're going to do to Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson and any of these other running quarterbacks? In addition to the limitations that some of these guys have in terms of their ability to pick apart a defense, and some of it was they've been so athletic for so long, they've been able to get away with it, and they haven't had to go through progressions. They haven't had to learn about what Kurt Warner did, which is get it and just get rid of it quick. Their athletic gifts have actually come back to hurt them. Even Steve Young, greatest scrambling quarterback of all time, Steve Young, career cut short. Why? Because he went out of the compound. Drew Brees was diving on a fumble near the goal line. Yeah, and his arm got bent back. It was so nasty. So I watched last night, and again, I'm not a Cam guy, but I'm not a Cam hater. I realize what he is. I think they realize what he is. But that guy is taking a beating. And that's the only way in which he can play the position is if you make him into a runner. You use the fact that he's a freight train. The problem with that is it's just the attrition. It's the body blows up, a hit here, a hit there. Don't believe me? Deshaun Watson, 2 ACLs. All right, that's not about hitting. That's about running. What about the collapsed lung this year?